office during this COVID-19 pandemic. I just wanted to take some time today, Thursday, to just welcome everybody back, especially the people on Tuesday that didn't get all of their questions answered. And I know that there was a number of you out there who had questions, and we had to cut it a little bit short because I had some consultations and things are pretty busy. But I still want to make sure 100% that this is going, that the people who need help are getting it. I'll just wait a little bit here to see if people are tuning in, to see if our connection is still working. Okay, we've got Ralph here. He says, hey, Mark. So we do have YouTube is connected. That's great. Those of you who are connecting on Facebook, we'll just wait and see if you have connected as well. As always, guys, when you're tuning in, make sure you list where you're tuning in from. I love to give a shout out for people as to where they're connecting from. But this is serious business. It really, really is. And there's so much that has been going on. And, the reality is with these, it's late, I know, in a lot of other countries, but I had to shift my Q&As to a later time spot because I've been doing weekly, and now it happens every 2 weeks, calls with immigration as we talk about how these COVID restrictions and everything related to travel and with the effect it's having on immigration, it's all kicking in now, such that those conference calls that I have were impacting on being able to do these at 12. But for those of you out there that are in the process of figuring out landing and whether or not you can travel to Canada, those even who have just recently arrived, or even if you've got a passport request, I want to remind all of you guys that we are doing a webinar devoted specifically to settling in Canada. And if you go to the main website, and I'm going to try to find the right page here for you guys. I got a couple different things going on here. Let's see here. So we've got that. I got way too many screens. Let's see if I can find, let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing. This is the fun part when you're trying to navigate through all these different channels. And so I appreciate your patience as I close out some of the screens that I do not need, that are causing confusion. All right, at least, well, maybe not for you, but for me, we've got some confusion here. Okay, so let me pull this back up. So right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute page, I am having a webinar right here, and the webinar will be on, as you can see here now, it's 7 days away, so it will be Friday, May, and actually, if you go up to the top and click on Canadian Settlement Course right here, you'll see that it's going to be Friday, May the 8th at 2020. And there's a lot of questions about what the world's going to look like trying to settle in Canada now in the midst of this, this COVID outbreak. And so there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to talk about. I'm really excited about this, the webinar that we're going to do that's in preparation for the actual course. So you can join this free webinar by registering at the Canadian Immigration Institute site. And I've had a lot of people ask me, okay, Mark, let's flip back here, make sure I'm on the right screen here. I've had a lot of people ask me, okay, Mark, what are you actually going to be covering in this? And so let me pull up some of the common questions as we wait for everybody to tune in. So here's some of the questions that we're actually going to be addressing in the course itself. And I'm going to be hitting on some of these as well in the webinar. But questions like, does the government have any programs for newcomers like me? Do you have any recommendations on where to settle down, how to find accommodation, and most importantly, job recruiting resources? What's out there to help me connect with a profession in my field so that I can actually work not in a survival job, but in a job that is going to allow me to use all the skills, the education that I've acquired to immigrate to Canada in the first place and be able to actually land a job, a good job. So we're definitely going to be covering that. And obviously, one of my favorite things is I'm describing this new, the webinar and actually the course, what it will look like. Think of it this way. Think of it as a webinar and then a course on settling in Canada that's going to help you answer some of the most important questions that you would ever have about immigrating. And one that comes right off the top of my mind is that people ask me, what are the things that I need to know, the essential things before I ever step on that plane? And I know I'm going to be bringing in people that have already come, that have immigrated, that are going to be providing some little interviews with me, talking about their experience, suggestions, but it's going to be loaded with tips and strategies on successfully settling. And I think more than anything right now, this is an issue that people are going to be having because the rules of engagement, the way things operated in the past, are not necessarily going to be the way they are in the future. And you need to be aware of the challenges. You need to be aware of the opportunities and the resources that are available to you, and to make sure that you're prepared. So that is going to be this settlement course right here. And you can see you can go to the Canadian Immigration Institute website and just register. And it's going to go live May 8th at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. So those of you who are overseas, who are watching this at after 1 a.m. in the morning, wherever you are all over the world, this is a reward for you guys. So instead of doing it late at night, this is going to be in the evening for you guys, where you can actually tune in. So check it out and register. And yeah, just one other way that we're trying to give back. Okay, guys, let's take a look and see where people are tuning in from. All right, so let's see what we've got here. So let's see. I'm going to just move my screens around here. All right. Okay, so we've got Anbu, who's tuning in from Miami. We have Ife, who's over in Toronto. Welcome, Ife. Let's see who else we have here. Oh, we've got Ram on Periscope. Welcome, Ram. Good to see you again. You have to let us know where you're tuning in from. And let's see. We've got Olamide is also watching from Ontario, in this case, Ottawa. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Let's see where else everybody else is listening from. If you have a question, guys, hold off on your questions. This one is actually going to be devoted to you guys. So we're going to talk just a little bit about a few things that are happening, and then I'm going to go straight to the live listeners today. So anyone who is here tuning in, watching live, I'm going to really focus on answering your questions like I can. Now, if you have a big, long question, I'm not going to review it. So you have to keep it a short, little one. If it's a big, long, multi-paragraph, I'm going to likely bypass those questions. So hold off on doing that, okay? And those of you who are tuning in, please, just like Sanjay, let us know where you're listening from. So Sanjay is in Dubai, which is awesome. And then we have someone who's tuning in from Bangladesh. And Asan is in the UAE. And Ram's in Edmonton. Okay, great, Ram. Thanks for connecting. Okay, let's see what else we have here for people. Ana. Oh, muito bom velo, talvez. Anna, I guess it's good to see you. All right. Even though I don't see you, but I see your comment. So that's great, Anna. Welcome from Brazil. One day, Anna, I am going to get to Brazil. As many of you know, I served a 2-year mission for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, in Portugal. Wow, a long time ago. It was like 92 to 94. And originally I was supposed to go to Brazil, but guess what? I had visa problems with how the church was trying to process my missionary visa to Brazil. So I ended up having to have my mission location changed. I'd already spent just about 2 months in the missionary training center in Provo, Utah, getting a crash course on Portuguese. And then after that, about 5 days before I was to leave, I was told that my visa was going to be delayed. They'd have to start the process over again because they did it wrong. Sound familiar? Getting your application rejected? In those days, as a 19-year-old kid, I didn't understand what was going on. All I know was that I was super, super bummed to not be able to go to Brazil. And then they had a different, the visa requirements for Portugal at the time were not the same as Brazil. So I was able to go there. So my Portuguese is Portuguese from the motherland. But one day I am, Anna, going to get to Brazil. All right, let's see where else everybody's coming. We've got someone wishing me all the best and hope that I'm keeping safe, as am I to all of you guys, hoping that you guys are staying safe. All right. Okay, Karan says there is a slight lag on Facebook. And yeah, there is. Sometimes the Facebook feeds there's a little bit of a lag, so I appreciate you. You can always shift over. This is being broadcast in 3 different locations. So YouTube, it's broadcast on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page, as well as the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, and on Periscope. Those of you who are in the private Express Entry Law Facebook group, you guys will know that I can't see your comments. So if you want to post comments and have me respond to them, you need to shift over to the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Okay? All right. Hadabi is tuning in from Germany. Excellent. Okay, we've got Vivian in Chennai. Awesome. Noah says hello to all of us here. Let's see. Sonali is tuning in from Bangladesh. Excellent. Raj is Abu Dhabi. Excellent. And we've got Azil in Qatar. We got a pretty good YouTube contingent now. Okay, and then people are starting to ask some questions, so hold off on your questions. Let's see. Samain is tuning in from Pakistan. Nana is Cameroon. Let's see here. Karen says, what's the cost for the webinar? It's entirely free. The webinar is entirely free. So make sure you get over there and get to the landing page here where you can easily find going to the Canadian Immigration Institute page. So if you go to the CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com page and click on Canadian Settlement Course, you can get access to the registration page. And you also will have an opportunity to, when you click on register, to leave us a question. In other words, if there's something that you want to learn about settlement, post those questions, because that's what's going to form the basis of the actual course. So I love to receive that, because what's the point of creating a course if you're trying to teach people things that they don't even want to know, or it's not helpful to them? So this is really, really tailored to all of you guys. All right. And remember, when it comes to the course, it's really reserved for people that are getting ready or imminently either have already landed in Canada, or they have their passport request, or they actually have their confirmation of permanent residence, and they're, with COVID, everything's being delayed, so they're trying to figure out, what do I do? That's kind of the area that we're focusing on. All right, let's see who else we have here. Okay, Karen is in Delhi. Excellent. Marilee, hey, that's awesome. Marilee's in Lethbridge. Fantastic. Very cool. Hey, there's a first. There is a first. Okay, let's see. Arifa is Bangladesh. We've got Yusuf in Morocco. And then we have someone tuning in from Libya. I don't know what that says. Anand is in Toronto. And let's see. Manpreet is tuning in from India. Let's see what else we have. Henry here is tuning in from Toronto. Okay, and wow, we've got a lot. This is awesome. First Eggs Grit, whatever that means, is watching from Abu Dhabi. And because it's so late there, I'm going to give you a shout out. So awesome that you're connected. Thank you so much. We also have someone else from Pavani's in Toronto. Let's see, as we're cruising through here, we got people from New Delhi and Bangladesh as well. We've got Sonia tuning in from Nigeria. And as I continue to scroll down here, you can see there's just a ton of people from all over. And that's really why I like to do this. So thanks everybody for posting where they're tuning in from. And at this stage, let's see here. Actually, Anna says, now you don't need a visa to visit Brazil. That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. And I will be heading there, Anna. I definitely will. Okay, great. It's great to have everybody tuning in. I really appreciate it. Let me just see here. Okay, so we've got Adam is Uzbekistan, and we've got Germany connected in here. Adabi, and let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, we've got a ton. So thanks, guys, for, I'll just pop up a few others here. Toronto, Edmonton, awesome. So, and we got some other people from Bangladesh, and obviously Pakistan as well. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, and thanks for letting me know where you're listening from. It's really cool. Remember, wherever you're tuning in to, you can share this, especially on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Let people know that you are watching and that now's the time to join us live. And you too can have your opportunity to have your question answered. Okay. All right. So what I want to do right now at this stage is hold off on asking your questions just yet. I want to remind everybody that normally I used to do these at Tuesdays at noon Mountain Daylight Time or Mountain Standard Time as it applies. However, because of COVID-19 and all the changes that are occurring, they're happening so fast. And there's so much uncertainty. The government has just recently announced a number of specific examples and some just more clarity on what the restrictions are for who can travel and who can't. Obviously, we're still in the midst of this. You know, in some cases, we feel like we've kind of leveled off and the worst of the things to come have kind of hit us, at least for this first wave. But everybody's still super cautious, especially within the government departments. The airlines, the travel restrictions between countries, they're still really, really tight. But we're starting to get a better idea of who can travel and who can't. And many of you, I'm sure, have heard all of the stories about, you know, people trying to be reunited with family. And I'll give you an example of one of my good friends here in Lethbridge, a friend I've had since I was in grade 1. And he is married to a wonderful woman from Peru. And they've often traveled back and forth. And they haven't started their spousal sponsorship application yet. But she's there, he's here, and they're not able to come. She's not able to come to Canada right now because of the restrictions. And there's a number of reasons behind that, but really it comes down to the border service officers and what they determine to be essential travel and non-essential travel. And IRCC has posted some additional information on some of the examples, like I said before, of what works and what might not work for the purposes of being able to board and travel. But there's a lot of inconsistency in how this is being applied across the country. So because this is a topic in and of itself, I'm actually not going to, I'm not going to cover this today. I'm going to do one additional live Q&A on Saturday to talk about the most recent announcements. And I know Igor is going to put a link to, I'm not sure if he's put it up yet, but in the comment section, he is going to post a link to the most recent updates from IRCC related to COVID-19. And then I'll try to give it a little bit of a shout out here on the screen once we get that in place. And on Saturday then, it's really going to be, I'm going to have a special episode that's not so much a DIY, or I should say a Q&A, but there will be opportunities for questions for sure. But we're gonna talk specifically about these travel restrictions and just the ability for you, whether you're a person with a passport, you know, you've got your passport request or your confirmation of permanent residence even, and you're wondering whether or not you can travel. If you're a foreign international student, a worker, can you travel to Canada? Those are the things that we're going to be talking about, and especially like the case with my friend. Basically, I guess one piece I'll give you, when you have family members, theoretically, IRCC, the examples they give indicate that if you're a Canadian citizen and you have a spouse outside of Canada, and they should be able to board and fly. The travel allows them to come. But what's happening is many of them are being turned around because CBSA is determining it as being non-essential travel. And they say, look, if you have not already been settled in Canada, then you don't need to reunite with your wife or your husband, which is really, really harsh. But guys, we are in really uncharted territory here. And so I'm trying not to be too hard on the officers. And the reality is as we're doing the best that we can, the key is to be safe first. And then if there's a little bit of an inconvenience, well, we kind of work through that. So, and I see a bunch of people are posting the restrictions. So thank you so much. I'm just going to see if I can actually, in the comment section, I see, I can't even click on it. Okay, well, that's all right. So what I'm going to have you do is make sure you join me, and it'll be, I think we haven't entirely decided on the time, and I'll try to promote it and I'll try to put it out on our social media. I also want to let you guys know, as you're tuning in all over, that you can find us on Twitter. We have our Twitter channel, which the videos and everything are going live, and you can see right here on the Twitter channel, at least our Twitter feed, the video that I'm doing right now is going live. So you can watch it there. You can also go to our Instagram stories and get a bunch of information here on our Instagram, although I must confess, I am not a super Instagram person. You can see here, Immer Lawman is my actual my my Instagram channel, but I am not a super Instagrammer. So understand with this, Igor is introducing me to the wonderful world of Instagram with our channel, holthe.immigration.law. Okay, so come check it out. We're going to have other information there, and we will post and announce, as well as on the standard Facebook channels, of when we're going to go live. But I think probably on Saturday, the special episode for travel is going to probably be around 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. Okay, so stay tuned for that. All right, good. Thank you. Okay, let's now, at this stage, we're going to shift gears and we're going to start answering live questions. Okay, so I know people have been posting them like crazy. So what we're going to do right now is we have an unknown person saying hi here. And so if you're on your feed, this is a Facebook one, okay? So, and then we also have another one here from Abhishek. So what we'll do is we'll start with Abhishek, and then we will continue on with the other ones on Facebook that are posted after hi. And those of you on Periscope, will squeeze you in as well. I'm just going as they're actually posted, and so I don't try to split Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope. I just go as they appear in my live kind of comment display on my computer here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll start here with Abhishek's question, and let me just pull it up again here. So Abhishek says, hi Mark, I will be submitting my profile under CEC next week. I have a 2-week unpaid leave in December, but it's not mentioned in the letter. How do you suggest I tackle this situation? Okay, this is super important. So when it comes to this type of a question, what you're asking is, does this 2-week unpaid leave, could it constitute a break in employment such that I can't count, the full year for CEC? Remember, on the Canadian Experience class, you don't have to have that 1 year continuous. So that's not an issue so far for you, Abhishek. When you are starting work and then you take a break and then you continue on, you can totally compile those together. So from that standpoint, I don't see too much of an issue. Now, you said that you that you're getting ready to submit your profile. So often what I'll do is with two week breaks like this, I don't actually worry too much about let me just see here. I'm just trying to think here. I don't usually worry too much about if it's a paid leave. It's a vacation. But when it's unpaid, then you have to look at the circumstances. I'm assuming you just took, if it was an unpaid leave, was it a vacation? Was it something that normally you take, but your employer just isn't paying you for that period? Usually I don't get too fussed about that. I'll be honest. I usually don't. But if it starts to stretch more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks, then at that stage, then I actually would look into making sure that that is broken apart into 2 separate work histories if it was a longer period of time. But that's a really good question, Abhishek. And in your situation there, I wouldn't worry too much about the 2 weeks. But if it's an actual break in employment where your unpaid leave is more than a leave, it's just you've actually stopped working and then you're being rehired back on, then you need to break those into 2 separate pieces. But for CEC, it shouldn't make a big difference for you. Okay? All right. Next question here. And I apologize. I had someone coming to the door here asking for me. And so you can imagine what it's like. I'm here at home and people are dropping things off. And so do you know what? Give me 1 second here. This is where the fun and enjoyment is. I've got to sign a document for one of my clients. It's a live Q&A. What do you do? What do you do? So hang tight for a second. I'm just going to disappear and you guys are going to be wondering, what the heck is going on here with Mark? But give me a second and I will be back in a second. Okay, mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. I was able to figure it out pretty quick. So awesome. All right. Okay. Oh, nice. I've got Feroz here. This is great. He says, "Hello, Mark. Can you please help me? My life is in danger." That's scary, actually, Feroz. If that's actually the case, I feel for you, my friend. Obviously, this could be a gag. It could be real. But the reality is, obviously, there's not much that I can do to help you, Feroz. I recommend that you go to the local police if your life is in danger. Okay. Awesome. I picked the perfect one to have up there for you guys to review. So hopefully, Feroz, that was just a joke just to get it posted and it's not serious. Otherwise, Feroz, I think you know there's not much I can do to help you, my friend. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, 692 in the recent PNP draw. Only people who are present in Canada are pulled out, or PNP candidates. So, in the recent PNP draw, 692. Only people who are present in Canada are pulled out, or PNP candidates outside of Canada also got the chance to get ITA. Guys, okay, I'm not sure, Steve, if you're referring to something that's just recent, but if you were drawn, it all depends upon the program in which that you were drawn under. So if there's a PNP draw, that includes everybody, whether you're inside or outside. If you've got a nomination and you've attached that to your profile before you get your invitation to apply, you will receive that nomination. It's not just restricted for people in Canada. You will be given the opportunity to continue forward if you were nominated by a PNP, if that is the draw. And as well, if it's open to CEC, then of course, sometimes people are not in Canada and they're still drawn under the Canadian Experience class. So it really relates to the actual program that you're drawn under and not your location. And so keep that in mind. All right. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, Yasmin says, my biometric and digital photo for study permit steps are stuck. Yes, my class is due September 2020. Will IRCC eliminate these steps if the situation doesn't improve? Okay, Yasmin, this is an awesome question. The reality is at this stage, we do know that in some circumstances, IRCC will waive biometrics, and even built into the regulations for biometrics, they do have the ability to waive those. But one thing we do know is that immigration is being extremely reluctant to do so, to make any changes to the requirements, or to modify the eligibility for any programs. They just are not, they're not willing to do that. They're considering the best practice as being waiting and delaying as much as possible to see what the future holds. And I understand for many of you that have study permits, classes are supposed to start in September. Everybody is really panicking, wondering what's going to happen. Now, obviously, we have heard a lot of information about schools going online and being able to start classes early online if the travel restrictions prevent you from traveling. But when it comes to actually those of you who are applying for study permits to get those in order to actually travel to Canada and obtain the permit at the port of entry, that is still up in the air. But stay tuned, Yasmin, because those will be things that we're going to be addressing going forward. All right. Good question. Okay. So here we got a question. I'd like to ask about getting pre-arrival service letter. Is it a good sign? Is my app close to getting processed? Yeah, that's a really, really good sign, because they don't usually send those out unless your application is nearing the finalization stage. So they send those pre-arrival services out, those letters, to give people an idea of some of the things they need to consider. Now, they're pretty generic information. It's pretty basic, but I would hold Canada up to any country in the world in terms of how much we support our people that actually arrive and the settlement services that are available. Now, people fall through the cracks, and there are lots of issues and challenges for people when they come, and I'm not minimizing that at all. But the goal of the course that I want to provide to you guys, that a settlement course, Settling in Canada course, this is where I'm going to help you guys to figure out where you can go, the things that you need to know most before you ever get on the plane. And I'm really going to divide it up into a bunch of different categories. Just what is Canada all about? What does it have to offer? Things that you must know before you board the plane. The situation of what you do on landing, and in the first few weeks of arriving in Canada, what you do to make sure that you are settled and ready to go. And then long term, how can you be successful? So all of those are going to be in the settlement, including job hunting skills and resume building and all of those things. That's what the course is going to be. But the webinar on Friday coming up, a week from tomorrow at 8 a.m. And register for it, and then you'll get the link, because it's a webinar. It's not going to be on our social media channels. You can register for free. So and I'll talk about the course. I'll talk about a lot of things. All right. Okay. Continuing on. Let's see here. Okay, so this one's Iffy says, hi Mark, when is the next CEC draw? If my CRS score is 455, what are the chances for ITA? Okay, I'm going to flip over again here to my screen, and I'm going to remove Iffy's comment here so it's not blocking it up. And then those of you, if you're wondering where are those rounds of invitations, I've typed this in so much here, I can just type in rounds of invitations, EE, and that's usually good enough. If you are trying to search Google from your country, it may not come up that easily, but you can find it online. And it's the express entry rounds of invitations with IRCC. And if you look here, so as we're scrolling down here, so today, April the 29th, number 145. So there was a draw, and what was this draw focused on? You can see provincial nominee class. So individuals in this class should expect to see, if you have a nominee through one of the express entry streams for provincial nominees, then it's likely you're going to be drawn under here. So you can see only 589 were issued this time. So you had to have a rank of 589 or above. So really, even when it comes to the tiebreaker rule, it looks to me that they probably scooped everybody that was actually at the 489, right? And then you can see here the CRS score of the lowest ranked candidate invited, is 692 is the lowest rank. So what does that mean? People with nominations, someone had a score of 192 basically under the human capital factors. And so the 600 formed a large portion of it. But yeah, 589 people is what were extended these invitations to apply. Okay, so you can see that's what they issued here for number 145. And then if you're wondering, okay, what happens in the previous rounds, you can click here and you can see here 144 was issued, about 2 weeks ago, or I guess it's right around 2 weeks, and that was Canadian experience class. So anyone that was drawn, and you can check within your profile which program you're drawn under, and provincial nominees. So they continue to issue rounds of invitations to PNPs and people in Canada. And we're not sure at this stage when that is going to change, but it kind of makes sense, right? At this stage, you've got a bunch of people who are in Canada who are either working, or they're potential students, or whatever it is that makes them eligible for the Canadian experience class. I shouldn't say potential students. They have Canadian work experience. They're giving priority to them, which in the circumstances makes sense. We have not heard yet what their plan is for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and those of you who don't have a connection to Canada and are looking to immigrate. So we'll just monitor it, and the moment I hear anything, trust me, I will share it with you guys. Okay, continuing on here. Next, we have a question. Okay, so let's go back to Iffy, and I apologize for kind of drifting off into a little bit more of an evolved discussion about rounds of invitations. But Iffy says, when is the next CEC draw? Well, we don't know. Obviously, we could see something pop up, in a week or something. It could be that the next CEC draw isn't for another 2 weeks. That's possible. We just don't know. And as you can see, anyone who thinks they know, they don't. They absolutely don't. Okay, the score here, 455, what are the chances for an ITA? Well, going back to the questions before, if you look at, and I'll reshare my screen with you guys, if you look at the round of invitation number 144, you'll see that miraculously, it dropped down to 455. So I'm assuming then in the situation for you, Iffy, well, let me jump back again as I flip back and forth. You can see here that the round of invitation at 455, the tiebreaker was January the 20th, 2020. So if you submitted your, if you had submitted your profile and you had 455 points, then as long as you submitted on or before January the 20th at 5:37 UTC, Universal Time, then you would have received an invitation to apply. Now, whether it's actually going to drop down to 455 again, I suspect if they do another CEC draw in the near future, that for sure it's going to drop below 455 because there's just no new candidates coming into the pool, right? The only people that are being drawn now are people that have already completed their ECAs, that have their language tests all completed, because people are just not able to get those now. All right. Okay, so moving on here. Thanks, Iffy, for that great question. Okay. Okay, we'll skip through this here. Okay. All right. So Rohan says, what happens if I can't get police clearances and medical exam before the 90-day validity of the ITA for express entry through CEC? Great question, Rohan. One thing we do know is that immigration is going to be flexible in terms of people who can't get the documents before their ITAs expire. So in those circumstances, you can most definitely proceed forward with filing your application. And in those sections within your personalized document checklist, I would provide a little note, a little explanation, a piece of explanation saying I couldn't get my police certificates because of whatever the reason was. I would make sure that you include a justification. So if there's a website or something that you can point to that says we are no longer doing police certificates or stay home, you cannot leave your house, those kinds of things to prove or back up your reason for not including that document are essential. Always include those. Don't just put out a random statement, I couldn't get the police certificate because of COVID. I would never submit that. Be more detailed. You can also explain I couldn't get my medical because the panel physicians are not doing medicals. Now they're starting to slowly roll out those medical exams in different locations, but if you can't schedule an appointment in time before your ITA expires, then you can go ahead and file. But make sure, Rohan, please make sure that you document everything so carefully. We don't know what immigration is going to be doing, right? With all of these Canadians who are out of jobs, businesses that could be closing their doors forever, there may be a whole lot of unemployment in Canada that is going to put pressure on how many international, how many foreign nationals actually are admitted in future draws. And so you don't want to be in a situation, Rohan, where you don't provide the evidence that you need, and then your application gets returned because immigration decides to take a harder line just to reduce the number of candidates coming in. I don't know if they would do that actually, but we've seen how willing they are to be quite ruthless in returning packages. So although I say, Rohan, make sure you provide a letter of explanation and they will allow for you to submit it, I personally document the heck out of it. So if you need any assistance, Rohan, and you want me to review things, obviously that's what I do all the time for my clients. But going forward, make sure that you are meticulous in justifying why you can't provide it. Okay. Okay, so this is a generic one, and I'll just pull it up. Is there any changes in EE program because of coronavirus crisis? Well, not with the basic eligibility or how the selection criteria are set up. Those are not changing at this stage. What's changing is that they're only doing draws for provincial nominee programs in the Canadian Experience class. Okay, this one is this is another unknown person. They say, I am a CPA Canada. What would be the job opportunities in Canada? I am post AOR in Dubai at the moment. That is a question that I cannot answer. I really can't. I don't know what the market's going to turn out to. Okay, Karen says, anyone got a confirmation of permanent residence, a COPR, post March 18th? That is a great question. We do know that they are continuing to some extent to issue these. We know that in Canada for sure, but outside of Canada, we haven't heard a lot about that. And so I welcome anyone to post their comments below if they've actually received their COPR in this post-March 18th world. In most cases, the visa offices are holding off on issuing the COPRs because they have expiry dates. And if the travel restrictions prevent you from actually being able to land, then it puts people in an impossible situation. And so IRCC is taking the position that if you're not already in Canada, then having that confirmation of permanent residence just complicates everything. So they feel it's better to hold off on issuing it until they figure out what the landscape is. Okay, great question, Karen. Okay, let's see what we have here. Okay, so let's get this one, YouTube from Divya. I'm a self-employed lawyer in India. I have provided letters from 5 clients to show work history. Is it sufficient? What else is required? Okay, well, let's take a second here, Divya, for you, and we'll leave the question up so people can take a look at it. Then I am going to pull up the only real resource that the government provides in terms of self-employment, and I'm going to flip my screen over, and now I'm going to remove Divya's comment so it's not blocking the way. And we're going to go to the completeness check site. So whenever someone asks me about self-employed, and remember, I have lots of resources on YouTube about this. You can go to my YouTube channel and research it. So I'll show you YouTube first if I can actually pull it up. I'm not sure if this site, sometimes I flip back and forth between my various channels. Okay, so if we go to the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel, where everybody's tuning in right now, and I'm just going to see if I can go to my channel. Okay, here we go. Work for me. Looks like I'm trying to click faster than it has the ability. Hey, check it out. Hey, I've got over 18,000 subscribers now on the Institute. That is awesome. You guys are fantastic. Very cool. And you can see right here the live now. It's going live. Okay, but if you go to my site, and I think I can search it this way, and I stretch it out. Let's see. There it is. Okay, far enough. You can see there's a search function. And if you search self-employed, we'll see if it's a hyphen. You can see here, EE self-employed success story. How do I claim self-employed work experience? How do I prove work experience if I'm self-employed? I've covered this. How do I claim work experience if I'm self-employed? There's tons of stuff here. There's tons of resources. And I'll be honest, for that reason alone, I really, really love YouTube. So go there. But the foundation of my instructions and the foundation of my direction that I give people with self-employed is that they need to go to the work history section. So I'll just pull it up. Proof of work experience. Okay. And once you're here, you'll see that at the bottom, it has a section specifically for self-employed. So it says, if the applicant is self-employed, which would be you, Divya, articles of incorporation or other evidence that you actually own a business, evidence of self-employed income. So you have to show that financially that you're being paid, right? So just a letter isn't enough. You need to show that you're actually being paid. Documentation from third-party individuals, including the service provided. Those letters are awesome. That's exactly what they're talking about here. But once again, along with payment details. Now, this is super important. Self-declared main duties or affidavits are not acceptable proof of self-employed work experience. So you have to really make sure that you're tapping into everything you can. And actually flipping back one more time, what they're really trying to establish is all of the same things that you can see right here that they would ask for an employed person. So they want to know what your job title is, duties and responsibilities. Are you currently working? The dates you worked for the company, number of work hours, annual salary and benefits. So all of those things, although they're not established in the same way in a self-employed situation, you need to make sure that you're establishing and proving those, because those are all components of the actual eligibility assessment and when they're trying to determine what your work experience is. So I'll just throw that out for you, but there's tons of resources on YouTube, and I recommend that you actually take a look at them. Okay. All right. Next question here. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna, so if it's small, okay, I'll pull this one up. It's bigger than I usually would like, but let's take a look. So, okay, in 2017, when we were doing the study and work visa and the open work visa process, we had to do the medicals, and we got a medical ME number, medical exam identification number, that is supposed to be valid for 10 years. Now, wow, that's interesting. Now, do we have to do it again for PR? If so, what happens if we cannot do it due to COVID? What is the best way to fill up that part of the application? Thanks a lot. Guys, medicals are valid for 1 year, not 10. So unique client identification numbers last forever and ever, but medicals are only valid for a year. Immigration has the ability to extend them. But yeah, when you're applying for PR, you need to get a medical. And if the medical is not available, just like I had indicated to the other person who posted a comment, you need to explain very clearly why you weren't able to do it. And if the panel physicians are not doing medicals at the time in which you start your PR application and you're not able to obtain them, then you need to make sure that you explain it very clearly. But yeah, they're not valid for 10 years. Okay, here's a good one. When will the Canadian Embassy in Abu Dhabi be fully operational? When this pandemic clears. Simple as that. When people can return back to, some semblance of normal, whatever that is. Okay, let's see here. Okay, here's a good one. I know what Ahmed is asking here. And some of you may read this and say, what the heck is Ahmed asking? So Ahmed, you says, hi, Mark, I have experience as a chef for 6 years, but my Master of Science degree is in management. Is it acceptable? Yes, do not confuse those, okay? When you're getting an educational credential assessment, they don't care what you ultimately did with the degree. All they're looking at is whether or not that Master's of Science would equate to a master's level degree in Canada. And if not, then what would it equate to? Because that's how many points you're getting for education. Whether you worked as a chef or as, some scientist is irrelevant. That's a whole separate discussion. So don't confuse the two. They don't have to be necessarily related, okay? All right. Okay, we'll move on here. So make sure that your questions are small, okay? Because it will take me too long to sift through, and I'm just going to be cruising past the ones that are longer than this. Okay, received the permanent residence this February and already received the PR card. Soft landed in March, but still now there's no update in the profile, and it says that the document has expired and counterfoil as this is referring to the visa date. So now, do we need to mail IRCs for the update, or the profile will itself be updated? I am so confused. So Bipasha, you are asking here, you received your permanent residence in this February and already received your permanent resident card during your soft landing in March, but you still, now there is no update in the profile. I'm totally confused, my friend. If you've got a permanent resident card, the process is completed. So I'm assuming you probably just weren't explaining it properly. Okay, so if you've got a big, long question, I'm not going to review it, guys, because I want to get through as many as possible. You need to keep it short and concise with as little backstory as possible, okay? Okay, Deanna says, can my husband and I have independent profiles in Express Entry as primary applicants and at the same time be the dependent of each other? Yes, 100% you can. There was a time I never advised my clients to do that. I always said, look, one of you is going to be a better candidate always. You can do the assessment. It's not a mystery. So don't waste your time completing 2 profiles. But that advice has changed. And the reason it's changed is because some provinces are focusing on extending notifications of interest, not just based on your comprehensive ranking system score, but on your occupation. So if you both have different primary occupations, and with provinces like Alberta extending those notifications of interest, to people that have CRS scores as low as almost 300, then understand there's no issues or restrictions on submitting 2 profiles and seeing what happens. So now, Diana, that's exactly the advice I give my clients. Okay. Adabi says, can one get married in Canada and apply for a spousal visa while on a visitor visa and stay in Canada rather than leaving the country? 100% yes. And I do this all the time for my clients. If you've got valid status as a visitor, you're married in Canada, you're in Canada, then you file your application through basically the spouse or common law partner in Canada class. And 100% you can do that. Okay. Aisha says, are the application for the Express Entry open for 2021 during this pandemic being accepted? It's business as usual. It's still proceeding forward. If you get an invitation to apply, you can still keep submitting applications. And as I've shown and demonstrated to you guys, especially for people in Canada, it's continuing forward, although there are fewer officers that are able to process, and so it's delaying things. Understand that when you're going through this process from outside of Canada, when the ITAs are issued, you are going to be able to continue applying. And so in terms of 2021, Express Entry is not shut down. So don't believe anybody that's telling you that, okay? There may be delays. Things might become modified. It's possible for the immigration, for IRCC to change programs, to make modifications. All of this is possible. They can do it even in the best of circumstances, let alone if there's a world of COVID-19. But you need to make sure when you're going forward, that you don't just stop the process because people get older, your age points increase. You may only have an opportunity now to continue moving forward, and it may be gone in the future if the government decides to change other program requirements. So personally, I tell people if they still have an opportunity to continue moving forward with your application, even that if that's submitting your profile. Obviously, if you get an invitation to apply, don't just cancel it and say, well, I don't know if I'll get a job in Canada. That's stupid advice. The reality is in 3 years, you may not even ever get an ITA again. And so people who can move forward, they do the soft landing. If there isn't an opportunity right now, then yeah, you can still go home. You have flexibility. In order to maintain permanent residence, you need to show that you've been in Canada for at least 2 years in every 5-year period. So you have an ability to work flexibility, to have some flexibility in your decision making on when you officially come and remain in Canada and pursue employment. So yeah, don't listen to people who tell you, oh, it's not worth it. Those people are idiots. Okay. Can I apply? Let's see here. Okay. Okay. Jack Boxer says, can I apply for a work permit visa in Canada? If it's your first, there are restrictions on being able to do that. First work permits have to be applied from outside of Canada. And when you're in Canada, lots of people will then, if they're on a visitor status, will then think they can go down and do a port of entry application. Do not bother. It will not happen. They are not accepting what we call flagpole work permits. So, and one of the challenges that we're having now is people who submit a work permit application from within Canada, because they don't have that opportunity to go down to the border and get the work permit, it's not doing you any good. Because even when it comes to travel restrictions, you'd have to fly out and then fly back in, and all of those restrictions are all in play. And so you then have to navigate all of the travel advisories. So it's a tough situation. Okay, let's see what we have next. Okay, Dancy says, am I eligible for a study permit with my spouse? How by open work permit as visitor visa, which is better to go together same time? Okay, so Dancy, I think what you're saying is the principal spouse has a study permit. There is a provision that allows an accompanying spouse to get an open work permit to work full-time while that spouse is going to school. There's a corresponding open work permit that's available. They're both C41, C42. Those work permits don't require any testing of the labor market. They're just basically because Canada wants you as a student and they want you as a skilled worker, they allow spouses to accompany and to work themselves. So in this situation, do you apply for a visitor or do you apply for a work permit? If I have the option and I have a spouse that's coming and it's going through a consulate, I will always request a work permit with it. I don't request a visitor visa. So I always request a work permit because there's a far greater chance that's going to get approved than a visitor visa. Now, with that being said, they routinely refuse these as well. So you have to show that you've got sufficient ties to your home country and that the intention in Canada is temporary. All right. Okay, let's see what we've got here. I'm just skipping through people who've posted their same comment over and over and over again. Okay, so Sarbjeet says, any chance of getting an ITA with 437? There was a time I would say, not at all. You're never going to get it. It's never going to drop down to that level. But the reality is if they continue to do draws with the CEC, right, if they continue to do Canadian Experience Class draws only and not federal, well, we've seen that everybody with the score of 455 was just pulled out in the last draw. It's entirely possible because there's no new language tests. There are people who are still struggling getting educational credential assessments. So there is not a lot of new candidates that are coming in, only those who already had completed those previously before everything shut down. And so there was a time I would say, no, there's no chance. But the reality is, Sarbjeet, it is entirely possible that future rounds could start to dip down even into that range. So I'm not ruling out anything. It just depends on how long they will continue to do CEC only draws. All right. Great question. I like that one. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see what Sanjay says here. So Sanjay says, hi, Mark, do you advise in consultation calls, what type of visa should a newcomer apply to increase his or her chances for immigration to Canada based on their CV? Okay. Sanjay, do I advise a consultation call? I always do. And I make no excuses about this. I'm constantly reading things online about people saying, if you can read and you have half a brain, you don't need to hire a consultant or a lawyer or whatever. You know what? Those people, congratulations, I'm happy for you. But in a 25-minute consultation with me, I can canvas everything with you so that you're not wasting time pursuing things that don't have a possibility. And you're not losing out on an opportunity because you didn't act quick enough, because you were spending hundreds of hours on the internet trying to read what other stupid people telling you you don't need to hire a lawyer. Those stupid people, you're trying to determine whether they even know what they're talking about, which in most cases they don't. What I found with those people, and I don't mean to rant because Immigration itself, filling out a form in its essence, you should theoretically be able to fill out a form yourself, right? What is your surname? Put it in the box. But understand there are so many variables that come into play. And when immigration is ruthless, when you miss something so small, wow, the consequences are off the charts. So idiots online who are saying you don't need to get any help, you can just do it on yourself if you can read, they are completely misguided. The reality is some people do get through. They spend hundreds of hours reading everything, educating themselves, and they're meticulous and they're careful and they're fortunate and they get through. And others who are not meticulous, who are idiots, who do their own application, and then they have an immigration officer who misses 3 different reasons in their application why the other 95% of officers would have refused those applications. Those people get through when probably they shouldn't, and then tell everybody it's easy, don't need to worry about it, you can do it yourself. And then guess what happens? They start telling everybody how to do it based on what they did, and then the other 95% of officers take the decision that the person who approved their application should have and start refusing everybody's application. And normally you'd say, okay, it gets refused, then resubmit. Well, we're not in that world now. The world we're in now is when you file your application, you better get it right the first time. Because if you don't, it could be your only shot at immigrating to Canada. And there was a time I laughed at people when they talk like that. There was always a way for me to fix things, always. But with the one-touch policy of immigration, the ruthless approach to processing in order to ensure efficiency and speed, let's face it, what country in the world can give you permanent residence in less than 6 months? I had someone get permanent residence in the early days in 3 weeks. Like, what country in the world does that? Maybe there are countries out there. So that comes at a cost. Speed comes with a one-touch policy, which means if it's got to be all correct, everything in there right now, or it gets rejected. Now, with that being said, the caveat in our world of express entry now and other immigration applications is that if there are circumstances outside of your control where you can't get medicals or police certificates or things like that, then you can submit and explain why you couldn't provide them. In the past, that would never fly. Express entry would reject it. They would never hold your application and wait for other documents. But now, because of COVID-19, they've expressed a willingness to do that. But for how long? Well, we'll have to see. All right. So in terms of what to do, Sanjay, in your situation, there are so many factors, but unless you have a job offer in Canada, there's a reason we have over whatever it is, 600,000 or 700,000 international students in Canada. It's because if you don't have any other way of getting to Canada, there's no job offers, then going to school is the way you do it, study permit. But they're cracking down on it. There's way more students than they have room to facilitate for permanent residence, unless they just stop processing all federal skilled worker program applications and only extend them to students who become post-grad work permit holders and then convert to permanent residence. So be aware, all right, that even if a pathway may potentially be open, you've got a whole bunch of things you got to prove with study permits. All right, great question. Okay. Here's a good one. I would like to ask about getting the pre-arrival service letter. Is it a good sign? Is my app closed? Okay, I've already answered that one. Spousal sponsorship app. Yeah, it's all good. You're getting close. Okay. All right. Okay. Steve says thanks. You're welcome, Steve. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay. So this one here, which is quite interesting, shopping TV. This is like, no, I don't help to find job offer shopping. I'll put it out there because it's there. But when it comes to the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, it's employer driven. You need an employer who's willing to go through just about the same steps as needed for an LMIA, a labor market impact assessment, in order for you to come through this program. So unless you're linked with an employer, it's not going to work. And nope, I do not do job placement. Okay. Okay. So Feroz now says, okay. Here, Feroz is now coming to life with his question. Hello, Mark. I worked with British forces in Afghanistan. I faced threats. Please help me about immigration processes. Thanks. Okay, Feroz, thank you for clarifying. There's a bunch of just, what do we call them? Trolls, I guess, who post things just to be stupid. And when then people who have genuine situations, and if that's your case, Feroz, understand that Canada does have programs for asylum and refugee. This isn't an area of practice that I fall under at all. And so when it comes to you trying to find a way to Canada, that's not something that I can help you with, Feroz. If you're applying as a refugee, you would need to do a search and find an immigration lawyer who practices in refugee law, and they could maybe help you and guide you. But unfortunately, Feroz, and I feel for you, my friend, especially when you sacrificed yourself to work with the British forces in order to deal with that whole crazy terrorist situation that evolved in Afghanistan. So I feel for you, my friend. I'm just not in a position to be able to give you any advice. All right. But good luck. And like I said, the best thing you can do is to do a search. And there's some wonderful lawyers. Actually, one thing I'll point out is on my Canadian Immigration podcast, I actually do have an episode that I did on refugees. So I recommend you go and take a look at it. And where do you find it? Just go to my Canadian Immigration podcast site. I'll make sure I'm spelling this right here. Canadian Immigration Podcast. There we go. And if you go here, you can then go into the search bar and in the same way, type in refugee. And then you type in refugee and then it pulls in past episodes. And you can see right here, Refugee Law, Essential Insight from a Refugee Lawyer. So that was my episode with Hart Kaminker back. It's been over a year ago now. But just great insight on how it works and the contact information for Hart. All right. Okay, continuing on here with the questions. All right, so the next one here is, okay, well, this is an unknown question, but it's a fair one. Can you tell me what's the impact after COVID-19? Is it easy or tough? I think probably what people are talking about is what is it going to look like settling? Well, this all is stuff that we're going to cover in the course. So I recommend that you connect, register, leave me a question, post those questions in there, and then they will form a part of the actual course that we are offering on settling in Canada. Okay, I'll answer. We're kind of into overtime now, so I'm probably going to shut it down. Let's see here. Okay, Kuldeep says, I've applied for an LMIA in Alberta and on online ESDC portal yesterday. How much time they will take to process the file? So Kuldeep, the first question I have is, are you an employer? Because it's really an employer-driven process. You yourself can't submit an application if you're a foreign worker. It's the employer who submits that application. So if that's the case and you are an employer who's submitting it, we just don't know. We've received reports in many instances that LMIAs are being delayed and they're only being processed for essential service. So food, maintaining the food chain, infrastructure, essential things. So at this stage, there hasn't been a complete, no, we're not doing it anymore. But you need to take into consideration that no one knows really how long it's going to take for these LMIAs to be processed in the current world that we're in. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, on Saturday at either 12 or 1, you're going to have to watch for it. We are going to do a special travel Q&A, I guess you could say, on the travel restrictions to Canada, some of the updates that were just announced. Even today, we're going to take a look at those and try to dive into them a little bit deeper. We're going to do it on Saturday, hopefully when people maybe are not working and they can turn their minds to it a little bit more. So stay tuned on all of our social media channels. We will be sharing that with you. I want to also remind everybody, so if we go right here to the registration page, if you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute.com site, right at the top is the Canadian Settlement course. If you scroll down, you'll see that you can join our Canadian Settlement webinar. And when you register for the webinar and you click on this button here, it will take you right here to the link where you can go in and register for the webinar. 7 days, 17 hours, 52 minutes, and 50 seconds until we go live with that webinar. So register, then we'll send you the link so you can participate. And so far, the response has been unbelievable. And I'm hoping that we're going to actually have enough space to make this work. And remember, this webinar is free, so there's no cost to the webinar itself. And in there, I'm going to be offering some really, really important tips on settlement free. And I'm also going to be talking about the actual course that I will be running on settling in Canada. So thanks everybody for tuning in. It's been another awesome live Q&A, which started with Express Entry and now it's drifted into Canadian immigration. I'm sorry for the people that I wasn't able to reach out to. but I want to express sincere appreciation to those who posted comments. As always, we are still taking emails to info@holthelaw.com. If you put live Q&A in the subject line, then your question could be considered for another upcoming live Q&A. As it stands right now, it's probably either noon or 1 o'clock on Saturday. Special one devoted to the travel restrictions in Canada. Thank you so much, everyone. Please go connect with us on Instagram, on Twitter, the Holthe Immigration Law, Facebook, of course. Join our Express Entry Law Facebook group. We have a study permit law private Facebook group. Our YouTube channel obviously is a great resource, and Twitter. And also, guys, follow me on Twitter. The reality is I'm posting stuff all the time on Twitter as well in my personal capacity. And so that's also a good way to connect with me. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday, and wishing you all safety, health, protection, all those things that are just essential to navigating this crazy world that we call COVID-19. Take care.